It's the Happy Families Podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
Well, Mrs. Happy Families, every Friday we do a review of the week that was. We talk about what worked and what didn't. It's called I'll Do Better Tomorrow. And this is a really hard one for me to do today because I have been home a little bit more than normal. And while most of the week has gone really, really, really well, and I've loved being with our kids, I mean, I was thinking the other day, it's such a privilege. Somebody said to me, 6 kids. I was at an event. Someone said, six daughters, you poor thing. And I just was like, no, you don't understand. I'm not a poor thing. I'm so grateful. It's such a privilege to have them. However, in spite of the fact that it's been a good week, I'm going to start because Kylie, I blew it. And while there's been good stuff to talk about, I just want to highlight it because sometimes people need to know that the parenting expert gets it wrong. Well, just sometimes.
Well, after last week's revelation that you are the world's number one father-in-law, it's only fair that you would counter that with challenge.
Oh, gee, and I really blew it.
Make the rest of us feel good.
So on Sunday night, we're going back to the start of the week. On Sunday night, we had a catch-up with some of your family. We had your sister and husband and their kids come over, the oldest one with his girlfriend. Like there was, 15 people in the house or something like that? There was a lot of people there. We had Chanel and Jared and their baby girl along. And
you know the best thing about dinner the other night?
There was 15 people in the house.
Well, we ate on the floor.
We don't have a dining table at the moment. Yeah, we got rid of the dining table and the new one hasn't arrived. I'm not calling that a win. I didn't like that at all.
I just thought it was really novel.
My knees and my back were like, what are you doing? I'm sounding old, aren't I? I'll stop it. So Emily, for homeschool, had a school assignment and you decided that on Sunday night it was going to be the opportunity to do it. We were celebrating some birthdays. We were having a lot of fun. I got involved and did all of that. But right at the very end of the night, you said, I just need everyone to help Emily with this school assignment. And it was a warm fuzzies activity. Each person had to write their name on a piece of paper, an A4 sheet of paper. And then everybody in the room was asked to write something nice about the person whose name was on the piece of paper that was in front of them.
It was a little bit more specific. At the moment in health, she's learning about relationships and what makes good relationships. And so this was an opportunity for each of us to recognize what makes a good friend or what makes a good person in a positive relationship.
Right. So we're writing down things we like about the other people and everyone's piece of paper ends up in front of everybody else so that everyone could write something nice about everybody else. That makes sense, right? So you called out to me to participate because I just started clearing away the plates. I was going to say from the table, but we didn't have a table. So I was picking up plates and glasses from the floor and taking them into the kitchen and getting everything organized in the kitchen. And you said, come and help, come and be involved, come and do this. This is a warm, fuzzy thing. It's going to be really good. And I wanted to. It's a really nice thing to do. I saw the value in it. I wasn't trying to abscond. I really wanted to be involved, but the kitchen was a mess because the dishes from 15 hungry people don't clean themselves. And I said, all right, I'll be there in a sec. I'm just going to take care of a few things in the kitchen first. You were extremely efficient. I was less efficient. The dishes took longer than I thought. The activity was over faster than I thought. And I missed the activity. And what I really missed, I think I missed 2 things. First of all, I watched later on that night, everyone had gone home. And Emily had her yellow sheet of paper with her list of all the things that people love about her. And I was watching her sitting on the couch, reading that list over and over and over. And I just thought, I missed out on, here it is, it's all about me. I missed out on the opportunity to have people say nice things about me. I didn't get to sit there and go, they all love me.
You may have, towards the end, when you realised we were all but done, said, can you put out a piece of paper with my name on it?
And I'll come and do everyone's. That was a bit too late. But then later on, in another room, I think it was in our room, I found you doing the same with your piece of paper. And it was just this revelation to me. Because these silly yellow slips of paper with a few messy notes on them were genuinely meaningful to everyone who now had one and I didn't have one. But the second thing, which is even more important, I think, is that I missed the opportunity to say something that was loving and kind and beautiful to a dozen or so of the people who I love more than anyone else in the world. I chose a clean kitchen as my priority. I didn't choose the better part. And the goodness that I could have had from being involved was taken away from me because I got my priorities wrong. So my I'll do better tomorrow, as I wipe some weepiness out of my eye, is get the priorities right. Because these moments, these opportunities to say those things and have these things said about us, they should come along all the time, but they don't. And that was a singular and unique moment where we could have really, or I could have really made a contribution and shared so much love and received it as well. And I missed it.
I'm going to go out on a really big tangent here. But why do you think it is so challenging for most of us to actually express those feelings of love, gratitude, and admiration for one another? For most of us, it's not a comfortable conversation.
I love doing it. And I'm pretty sure I know why I love doing it and why people struggle with it. But I just want to emphasize that I just chose to clean the kitchen. I didn't have a problem with being involved. I just want to be clear about that.
No, the point that you've made, that you missed an opportunity and that it should be something that we do all the time. But for most of us, we don't.
Yeah. So I think that there are probably two really key answers here. The first one that strikes me is that we think that there'll always be another time. We really discount the moment and put it off into the future because we think in the future there will be an opportunity and it will probably even be a better opportunity. So to me, that would be number one. Number two is that it requires us to open ourselves up. And when we open ourselves up and when we're vulnerable, there is a possibility, sometimes even a probability of rejection, or our kindness may not be received the right way. It might be responded to with a sarcastic or a witty quip rather than a heartfelt sign of appreciation and then a reciprocal response where somebody says, and I love you too, or I think the world of you as well. So I think between those two things, we can always do it another time, which of course we can't. Ronan Keating sang it, If Tomorrow Never Comes. But also because it can be hard to open ourselves up and be vulnerable. Gus Wallen does this thing in his workshops, and I've borrowed it and done it once or twice myself, where he gets people to pull out their phone. Normally we're talking about groups of men in blue-collar industries going in and doing a workshop about mental health, and tells these guys, pull out your phone and I want you to send a message to somebody, a mate. Send a message to a mate and just say, really grateful for our friendship. I love you. Or something like literally those words. And the guys in the room, when I've done it, they just guffaw. They're like, oh, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And I'm like, well, you don't have to, but this is the activity and I want to encourage you to. And as they send the text messages, I say, oh, by the way, I want you to leave your phones on. I want to hear the dings as you get the responses. And I'd like you to read the responses out to everyone in the room. Only about 50% of people, in my experience, will send the message. Most people will say, no, I'm not doing it. But for the 50% who do, the phones start dinging straight away. And the messages that they get back are beautiful. They're I love you too, mate, and things like that. And every now and again, the phone will ring and it'll be somebody saying, are you okay? Is everything all right? Because it's so unusual that we would send those kinds of messages. I missed the opportunity to send a dozen or so of those messages on Sunday night. And I'm really, I'm not beating myself up too bad about it, but gee, I wish I'd chosen differently. That's my I'll do better tomorrow. Seize the day. Tell people that you love them. Tell them what you love about them and get involved with whatever the family is doing, even if it's not doing it for you right now and you think the kitchen matters more. Mrs. Happy Families, what is your I'll do better tomorrow?
Well, what I really want to talk about is how excited we are to have baby number 2 under our roof again.
She's been gone for 18 months in Europe doing missionary work and serving the community in the Leeds area, and she's finally come home. But
we're recording this a day before she gets home. So
we don't know if
you'll
it's good or
have
not.
to wait until next week and discover all the things that we've gone through in that week as she comes home.
So what is your I'll do better tomorrow? Since we can't have the live moment. If this was radio, we could do it live. We could say, hey, it happened last night. But unfortunately, the recorded nature of podcasts means 1 week to wait. But oh, gee, we're excited. What is your I'll do better tomorrow for this week, though?
We talk a lot about belonging, this need for us to feel like we belong, and how family traditions and family stories help our children to understand who they are and where they belong in the family tree, but in life in general, and how those relationships really matter. So a handful of years ago, we welcomed Jared into our lives. And one of the family traditions we have is that come birthday times, we share the birth story of each of our girls. And I've gotten really slack over the last few years because if I hadn't have written them down, all of those labours all kind of blend into one story.
6 very painful experiences that all just feel like the same thing now.
And every one of them has a very unique moment, but for the most part, they're all very similar until the end when we get to meet this beautiful, beautiful new baby. And so I'm really grateful that I've written it down because at this stage of life, I now actually pull it out and read it to make sure I don't mess up the details because they'll be sure to tell me that I've got it all wrong if I don't. But I was thinking about that in the lead up to Jared's birthday last week. And I was thinking about the fact, a couple of things. Number one, I didn't birth him. He's not my flesh and blood. But secondly, Jared actually doesn't have a birth story. Jared was adopted. And as such, he has never been told that story. He doesn't know what that story looks like. He literally, there is no sense of belonging in that space for him. And so, when we celebrated his birthday with the family the other night, I just felt like I needed to add him to the equation of our family tradition of birth stories. And I didn't do a great job of it. I need to work on it. But I really wanted him to know that him coming into our family was a big deal.
He was birthed into our family, 5, 6, 7, 8, however many years ago it was now.
And it was pretty messy. It didn't look nice.
That's right. It was pretty painful.
It was very painful.
And drawn out. I don't think drugs were involved.
But we look at life now, and I can't imagine doing life without him. And I love that we've created these traditions that help our family to feel like they belong and have a sense of who they are. And I hope that over the years, as we get better at telling his birth story, that he will feel like he's a part of our story.
The idea of birth stories comes up in some research by a guy called Marshall Duke. He's a professor of psychology at Emory University, and he found that people who know their roots, people who know what happened when they were being born, or know where their parents grew up or their grandparents grew up or where they met or where they were married or whatever, people who have those stories from their history, from their background, they tend to be more resilient. They tend to do better in life than people who don't have those roots and don't have those stories. And so that's why we do it. I love that you did it. It was so much fun to do that. Really, really enjoyable night until I decided to clean the kitchen instead of hang up with the warm fuzzies. Mrs. Happy Families, thanks for sharing. It's a really nice story. We can't wait to join you next week, tell you all about having our daughter being at home for our I'll Do Better Tomorrow next Friday. We'll be, about a week into it by then, and It's
literally one more sleep.
Oh my goodness, can't wait. The Happy Families podcast is produced by Justin Rowan from Bridge Media. We hope that this has given you some inspo to make your family happier. Otherwise, we hope that you've enjoyed our show and tell, which is kind of what it felt like a little bit. Do better tomorrow. That's the whole idea. Make your family happier. Thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you on Monday on the Happy Families podcast.